In the UK, a terrifying zombie virus escapes from a laboratory and rapidly spreads among the population, causing thousands of deaths. Don and his wife Alice, who has differently colored eyes, find refuge in a small countryside house with a few other survivors: Jeff, Sally, Jacob, and Karen. Alice and Don have 2 children, and they are relieved that the kids were sent on a trip to Spain, where they are safe. One day, as the group of survivors is having lunch, they hear frantic knocking on the door and someone crying for help. Don does not want to open the door to strangers, but Alice points out that it is the voice of a child and convinces him to open it. They fed the boy, and he recounted his story. His parents had turned into zombies and chased him along with a crowd of the undead. The boy had to run a long distance from a nearby town to get here. Meanwhile, Karen was worried about her boyfriend, who had left a few days ago and hadn't returned. She opened the window slightly to look outside, but even a small opening was enough for the zombies to hear and attack. They broke through the window and grabbed her arm, quickly biting her. Jacob arrived to rescue and pulled her back, but Karen had turned into a zombie and vomited a lot of blood before fighting Jacob. At that moment, Don appeared from behind and struck her head to kill her, allowing Jacob to escape. More zombies were approaching, so Don decided to stay behind to hold them off, giving the others a chance to flee. Alice and the boy ran into the hallway, but zombies began breaking the windows, so the 2 ran upstairs. The boy ran too fast, causing Alice to lose track of him. Jeff, Sally, and Jacob tried to escape through the livestock shed of the house, but the zombies chased them. Jeff held the door so the other 2 could escape, but the door was kicked open, and Jeff was killed instantly by the zombies' attack. Sally cried out in anguish as she watched her husband being torn apart by the zombies. This delay caused her to be caught by the zombies as well. Jacob didn't have the strength to pull her out and was forced to let go, closing the hatch so he could escape through the window while Sally was devoured. Downstairs, Don fought the zombies and managed to take down a few, but in the process, he lost his weapon and was forced to flee. Hearing Alice's scream, he ran toward her and tried to persuade her to escape, but Alice refused to leave without the child. While Don stayed behind, Alice finally found the boy hiding, only for a zombie to come between them and Don. Alice called for help, but Don, overwhelmed by fear, closed the door and escaped through the window, leaving his wife and the child to face the zombies inside the house. With dozens of zombies chasing him, Don ran across the field, ignoring Alice standing at the window. Eventually, he reached the dock, where Jacob was trying to escape on a motorboat. Don got on the boat first and started the engine while Jacob was untying the rope. However, as Jacob tried to jump onto the boat, he slipped and fell into the water, where he was bitten by zombies. Jacob quickly turned into a zombie and tried to attack Don. Don kicked him off and eventually started the boat's engine, using the propeller to kill Jacob before safely leaving. 15 days after the outbreak, the UK was placed under lockdown. By the 28th day, the virus had devastated the entire country. 5 days later, zombies began to die of starvation. And 11 weeks later, US troops arrived in London via NATO to begin clearing the area. 18 weeks later, the UK was finally declared free of the infection, and by the 24th week, reconstruction efforts began. The British citizens who had escaped during the chaos were allowed to return to the country. US soldiers continued to patrol and secure London, including Sniper Doyle and helicopter pilot Flynn. All the soldiers felt bored due to the lack of anything to fight, and they used radio waves to tease each other. On a new flight, a group of children returned from a school field trip. This upset Dr. Scarlett, as she believed it was too soon for the children to be exposed to a potentially dangerous situation. While conducting health checks on all the new arrivals, she met Tammy and Andy, the 2 children of Don and Alice. Dr. Scarlett noticed that Andy had different colored eyes, and he explained that it was a genetic trait inherited from his mother. After confirming that the children were healthy, the siblings boarded a transport and witnessed soldiers burning corpses, handling toxic waste, and cleaning every corner of the city. Eventually, they arrived at the secured resettlement area called District 1, where they reunited with their father, Don. Don brought them to his luxurious apartment, which he had acquired due to his role as District 1 manager. However, the children were curious about what had happened to their mother. Don recounted that zombies had attacked their home, but he lied, claiming he had seen Alice killed and was unable to save her. That night, Andy had a nightmare in which Alice turned into a terrifying zombie. When he woke up, he went to sleep with his sister Tammy and admitted he was afraid he would forget what their mother's face looked like. The next morning, Andy and Tammy waited for Don to leave for work and then sneaked out of the apartment without telling him. The siblings left the safe zone by crossing a sparsely guarded section of a bridge, and Doyle, watching from a rooftop, spotted them and immediately alerted his team. The sisters ran through an uninhabited area of London, enjoying the freedom of not being scolded by adults. When they found a delivery bike outside a pizza shop, Tammy went inside to look for the keys and was horrified to discover decomposing corpses everywhere. She retrieved the keys from one of the corpses but was startled by a swarm of cockroaches. Tammy also grabbed a helmet and rejoined her brother so they could leave on the bike. As they rode through the city, they witnessed the extensive damage left behind by the zombie attack and the additional graves that had been built in the past few months. Eventually, they arrived at their old home, where they took a photograph of Alice and gathered some of their old belongings. When Andy went up to the attic, he noticed the windows were covered with rotting food, and on a table, there were strange markings and their names written on the wall. Suddenly, he saw someone in the mirror and thought it was Tammy, but the person stepped out and it turned out to be Alice. She had one bloodshot eye but was otherwise fine. Alice rushed to hug her son. At first, Andy was overjoyed, but then Alice began hugging him too tightly. At that moment, the army arrived and took the two sisters away, also arresting Alice. Some time later, Alice was thoroughly cleaned and restrained on a stretcher. Dr. Scarlet tried asking Alice some questions, but Alice remained silent. Scarlet then took a blood sample from Alice and noticed she had been bitten, which didn't make sense since she hadn't turned into a zombie. After completing the tests, Scarlet confirmed that Alice carried the virus and could infect others, but she also had immunity. This meant Alice could potentially be the key to creating a vaccine. However, higher-ranking officials wanted to kill Alice before she could spread the virus and ordered her to undergo further testing. Meanwhile, the children were placed in quarantine. When Don visited them, they scolded him for lying. Feeling guilty, Don secretly bypassed military controls to visit Alice. In the quarantine room, Don apologized for running away and explained that he had reacted out of panic. Alice responded, "I love you." Don said the same and kissed his wife. However, Alice's saliva immediately infected Don, causing him to feel gravely ill and start screaming in pain as he turned into a zombie. Alice is terrified, but she is still tied up and unable to escape Don, who begins to attack her, beating her, biting her neck and crushing her eyes. Then, Don attacked a group of soldiers, killing them before escaping from the hospital, carrying the virus and spreading it throughout District 1. When the authorities realized what had happened, they moved to a secure bunker and initiated a lockdown under Code Red, while soldiers in the city prepared for battle. Tammy and Andy saw a guard pass by their door, only for him to return as a zombie. He began pounding on the glass, trying to reach them, until his head suddenly exploded as Scarlet shot him. Dr. Scarlet then rescues the children and takes them away. As they ran past the corpses in the building, they soon became trapped in a desperate crowd trying to escape. When the soldiers tried to tell Scarlet that civilians had to go through a different door, she declared that the children were priority individuals. An argument broke out amidst the chaos, and Andy got separated from Scarlet, and Tammy, pushed along with civilians into a safe room. The soldiers then locked the door to protect them, just before the entire area lost power. While waiting, Andy heard a noise and went to check the door. When he opened it, he saw his father, Don, who had turned into a zombie and was covered in blood. Don went berserk and began shaking the door until he broke it down and charged in, quickly attacking civilians and biting them. Andy fled in panic and tried to hide as the virus began spreading through the garage, causing chaos and worsening the situation. Now, Don was no longer the only one biting people, as zombies started appearing all over the room, spreading the virus further. Andy managed to climb over the crowd and crawl away until he reached the ventilation system and hid inside. The remaining people finally broke the lock and ran up the stairs, which also allowed the zombies to escape and continue spreading the virus onto the streets. Some emergency lights turned on, enabling soldiers to run toward the hospital while snipers provided cover. Soon after, zombies breached the lobby, forcing Scarlet and Tammy to flee as the soldiers opened fire. Sniper Doyle and the rooftop team killed each zombie with incredible precision, but no matter how many they shot, more zombies kept appearing. It became increasingly difficult to distinguish who was infected and who wasn't. They were instructed to shoot only zombies, but seeing the chaos through security cameras, senior leaders realized they had lost control and ordered soldiers to kill everyone in sight. As the military intensified their firepower, a bloodbath unfolded. Andy emerged from the ventilation system, right into the middle of the chaos. Fortunately, he was in Doyle's line of sight, who refused to shoot the survivors. Doyle continued to take down every zombie around Andy, including one that nearly killed him, giving the boy a chance to escape with the other survivors. Some zombies climbed onto the rooftop and began killing other snipers. After clearing the streets, Doyle had no choice but to escape. The group of survivors hid in a warehouse, where Andy reunited with Scarlet and Tammy and told his sister about their father. Not long after, Doyle arrived and offered to lead the survivors out of the area before the military could kill them. The group left the building through the back door and carefully moved through the streets, staying in the shadows to avoid detection by guards. When Flynn flew over in a helicopter, Doyle instructed the group to stop and distract Flynn via radio so he wouldn't notice them, then ordered the group to continue moving. Flynn later delivered bad news: the military would bomb all of District 1 in 4 minutes. Doyle convinced Flynn to pick him up at Regent's Park but said nothing about the survivors. The group continued running towards the park, but a sniper shot and killed one of the group. They hurried to take cover, but the sniper continued firing, killing several more survivors. Scarlett was slightly injured, leaving only her, the siblings, Doyle, and a man named Sam. While hiding behind a wall, Doyle tried to use a piece of metal to reflect and locate the sniper, but the sniper immediately shot it down. This made Doyle realize that the shooter wasn't a soldier but a panicked civilian. Doyle asked Sam to run in a zigzag pattern to distract the shooter, but Sam refused, so Andy decided to run instead. Running in a zigzag was enough to make the amateur shooter miss every shot, giving Doyle the opportunity to take down the sniper with a single bullet. Afterward, Andy hid behind another wall and was shocked to see the silhouette of his father standing nearby. However, before he could react, his group came to get him, and Don's silhouette vanished. The group continued running as fast as they could, climbing over a fence to escape District 1 just before the area was bombed. Moments later, the entire district was obliterated, killing thousands of people and destroying all of Scarlett's vaccine research. Flames spread through the hospital windows, consuming Alice and killing her in the fire. The group continued running through a tunnel, where the flames were also spreading, but they managed to escape before the building exploded. Generals monitoring the events from a bunker were horrified to see a large number of zombies surviving the bombing. The zombies were flooding into London, infiltrating every building, hunting victims and causing chaos everywhere. The next morning, Doyle's group finally reached Regent's Park, which had been abandoned since the outbreak. While waiting for Flynn, Scarlett told Doyle about Alice and the possibility that the children might share their mother's genes, potentially key to creating a vaccine. At that moment, Flynn contacted Doyle, informing him that he was on his way but warning them to beware of the zombies that had escaped. Doyle immediately ordered everyone to hide in the tall grass. Flynn lands nearby, but upon seeing the group, he becomes angry and refuses to take them away. An argument broke out. Sam noticed zombies approaching and ran out to cling to the helicopter. An enraged Flynn begins to fly the plane wildly, trying to make Sam crash. When the zombies finally reached the park, Flynn lowered the helicopter and started killing them with the spinning rotor blades. Blood and entrails sprayed across the tall grass, but a few zombies survived and began chasing Doyle, Scarlett, and the children. Eventually, Sam fell off, and with his body covered in blood, it was likely he turned into a zombie as well. The group kept running at full speed, while Doyle occasionally turned back to shoot the zombies getting too close. Flynn told Doyle to meet him at Wembley Stadium, but insisted on leaving the others behind. As the group rounded a street corner, they were shocked to find the military had begun pumping gas into the city. They quickly took cover inside a car. At that moment, the pursuing zombies caught up and started shaking the car, smearing their blood all over the windows. However, the gas quickly arrived and killed them all within seconds. Afterward, a group of soldiers appeared with flamethrowers to eliminate any survivors. Doyle tries to start the car, but fails, so he gets out and pushes the car to help Scarlett and the children escape, but in the process, he is burned alive by the soldiers. Scarlett took the wheel and drove through London as fast as she could. However, they were spotted by other military helicopters and came under fire. After evading several shots, Scarlett drove into a subway tunnel, and the group continued on foot. The tunnels below were pitch dark, so Scarlett used Doyle's night vision goggles to guide the children down the escalators. As they stepped over old corpses, they slipped and fell, causing the group to become separated. While moving through the bodies, Scarlett called out the children's names and eventually reunited with Tammy. But the noise attracted a nearby zombie. The creature grabbed Doyle's weapon and began beating Scarlett until she died. After the zombie left, Tammy picked up the weapon and was devastated to see Scarlett's lifeless body. Meanwhile, Andy arrived at a dark train platform, where he encountered the zombie that had killed Scarlett. The creature jumped on him and bit his neck. When Tammy arrived, it was too late. As the zombie lifted its head, she was shocked to recognize it as her father. However, after a moment of hesitation, she shot and killed him. Tammy, sobbing, checked on her brother, but Andy ran away, afraid he might infect her. Tammy immediately chased after him. And when Andy accidentally fell, she finally examined him and noticed his eyes turning blood red, just like Alice's, meaning he was also immune. They then reached the stadium and informed Flynn about Doyle's death. With no other choice, Flynn took the children and flew across England to escape to Europe. 28 days later, Flynn's helicopter was found empty and abandoned in France, with someone calling for help over the radio. A horde of zombies appeared, running toward the Eiffel Tower, revealing that the virus had now spread beyond England. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can see more videos like this. Thank you for watching. You can search for the movie 28 Weeks Later to watch the full episode.